What is going on, Hoops fans? Just want to get another quick video up on the page as rumors have continued to circulate in the basketball world, specifically with the New York Knicks. We will start with potential trade target Anthony Davis. Now, Anthony Davis, of course, tremendously talented player, former #1 overall pick out of Kentucky. He's been in the league for 6 years. He's coming off a season in which he averaged 26 points, 12 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He is a complete basketball player. He can do it at both ends of the floor, and he's one of the best players in the league. Now, some of the knocks on Anthony Davis, if you really want to look into it, would be that he has had some injury concerns. I don't believe he's ever played a full season in his entire career. He's had many years where he's played 65 to 70 games, but he's never played a full season. And then, of course, the other knock on him is he hasn't had the most success when it comes to winning. He's only been to the playoffs twice in his career, getting to the second round only once. And then I believe he was swept in the second round. So Anthony Davis has not had the most postseason success, but I'm going to give you a player that he kind of reminds me of in terms of his game, who didn't have much postseason success either, who is an all-time great power forward, and that is Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett with the Timberwolves left because they never gave him the pieces he needed to be successful. He had 1 year where they got him Latrell Sprewell and Sam Cassell, and I think they did pretty well. They may have made the Western Conference Finals, but overall, he was always a one-man show, the big ticket. And it's really been the same thing with Anthony Davis since he's been with the New Orleans Pelicans. They have not been able to surround him with other great players. They got DeMarcus Cousins for a little bit before he got hurt. And that is really why, in my opinion, why he hasn't had success. I think it has a lot less to do with Anthony Davis. I think he's potentially one of the top 5 players in the league when he's on the floor. So he's definitely an attractive option to trade for. And what happened, I believe about 18 to 24 hours ago, he met with owner David Griffin of the New Orleans Pelicans. Of course, leading up, months into this, Davis had been demanding a trade. He said he wanted off the Pelicans because of the same reason I think that Kevin Garnett wanted off the Timberwolves. He wanted to start winning basketball games. He's sick of losing. And David Griffin was confident in the last week or so that he would be able to retain Anthony Davis. He said that to the press after acquiring the #1 overall pick. He thought that Zion Williamson would be enough to keep him in New Orleans. Well, that is not the case from all reports that have come out. Anthony Davis has not wavered at all. He is still demanding a trade, and the New York Knicks remain one of the favorites. It's the New York Knicks, the Boston Celtics, and the LA Lakers. For the most part, those are the 3 teams you have heard. The Boston Celtics obviously have a lot of great assets with all the young talent they have on their team. The Lakers as well have a lot of young assets and an early pick with the 4th overall selection. And the Knicks, of course, have the 3rd overall selection. Now, the Knicks could elect, if they were to make a trade for Anthony Davis, to keep their young talent, to keep the Kevin Knoxes, the Mitchell Robinsons, whatever it may take to acquire him, because they do have the ability to absorb that contract with all the cap space that they have and still bring in a Kevin Garnett. So that would be a viable option. He only makes $25 million right now, Anthony Davis. He's set to become a free agent next year, in which, of course, he will be making upwards of $40 million a season, or even possibly more than that, which is insane the way NBA contracts are nowadays. But so they do have that option. The other option, of course, would be to offset the salaries. The New York Knicks, of course, would have to, offset the salaries by trading a guy like a Lance Thomas. They'd have to give up young assets, Kevin Knox's, Neil Akinas, DSJ's, to match up the salaries, so you'd still have enough room to bring in Durant and another piece, so you could create a 3-headed monster with a Kemba Walker. Of course, by doing that, you were getting rid of your young assets, potentially Mitchell Robinson and Kevin Knox. But they could elect to go that route as well if they were to make the trade. Of course, the #3 overall pick is going to be involved. RJ Barrett would not be a New York Knick if you were to go out and get an Anthony Davis. The question is he worth it? He's still young. I believe he's going to be 26 years old next year. You have some injury concerns. It's not nearly as high as a guy like a Kristaps Porzingis was, but he's played pretty much every year. It's just that he's missed some time. But yeah, that is there. But Anthony Davis, when he's on the floor, is a guy that I think with the proper talent around him can win you championships. The other quick thing I wanted to speak on was Chris Paul. The Houston Rockets have come out now and said that they want to potentially overhaul their roster. Now, I don't know if they plan on trading James Harden. James Harden's one of the top 3 to 5 players in the entire league. Last year's MVP is in contention to win it again this year. He had an absolutely fantastic year. He averaged like 35 points. James Harden's an unbelievable offensive player. Defense leaves a lot to be desired, but unbelievable offensive talent. But Chris Paul, from all that I've read, is going to be on the open market. Now, do I think the Knicks should go out and try to get Chris Paul if, say, they miss on a Kyrie Irving and a Kemba Walker in free agency. 100% no. Stay away from Chris Paul. I'm going to tell you why. If you're going to trade for a rental, an age veteran, you go more for Mike Conley. Mike Conley is a little cheaper. He's much younger. I believe he's going to be 29 years old next year, and he makes less. Conley makes on average, I believe, $34 million a year. Chris Paul makes $41 million a year on average for the next 3 years. Conley's only under contract for 2. Now, I don't think I'd probably want to trade for either one, but if I had to pick one, I'd pick Conley. Chris Paul also has only played 58 games each of the last 2 seasons, and he has clearly regressed. He averaged 16 points and I believe 8 assists this year, which was one of his worst statistical years of his career. He's gotten worse, which only makes sense. He's 34 years old. If you were to acquire him, you'd be paying him $44 million a year at the age of 37. Chris Paul makes no sense whatsoever. Of course, he would come cheaper than a Mike Conley because of his age, because of his contract, but I want no part of him. I would rather just stand pat and just take Durant than take on a guy like a Chris Paul. That is something that the old Knicks regime would do. That would be a silly move, in my opinion, by the New York Knicks, and they need to stay away from Chris Paul. I just wanted to talk about that briefly because I'm starting to read that the Knicks may potentially be one of the teams that could potentially be interested in acquiring his services if it's the open market. Chris Paul is a hard pass for me. He's one of the best point guards in the history of the league, but the guy's 34 years old, and he's going to be making $41 million a year on average for the next 3 years. That is insane. Stay away. But as always, if you liked what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.